Welcome to your 20-minute podcast with David Brower, where we do our best to give you useful information in 20 minutes or less. Now, here's your host, 5-time Voice Arts Awards nominee, David Brower.
Thanks, Alan. This is David Brower with your 20-minute podcast. Our special guest from Vancouver, Canada today is Charmaine Hammond. She's a professional speaker, best-selling author, and is a part of the course, Hammond International, Inc. and Raise a Dream. She's owned 3 businesses over the past 20 years, have helped thousands of leaders and team members learn the skills of communication, conflict resolution, collaboration, resilience, and you were even a correctional officer. Welcome to the show, Charmaine.
Thank you. Great to be with you today.
Thank you so much. I was in reading your bio. It says you were a former correctional officer. Yep, I worked in jails. That's where I secured my first leadership job, which came with lifelong lessons. I can only imagine what kinds of things. A friend of mine ministers in jails and also plays music in jails, and so we often talk about what she is able to share and learn. And I can only imagine what kind of an experience that was. Was that 20 years ago or so?
Yes. I think I got my first gray hair then, but yes, I was the same age as the youngest inmate when I started. So right out of college. You know how it is. Thought I could change the world. Thought I knew everything, and boy, did I get that attitude straightened up in about 2 days.
Well, what a wonderful gift, though, to be able to get that figured out in such a short period of time, and kind of go, oh, I want to pay attention to this now. Absolutely,
the learning was incredible, and one of the best learnings that I took, and this is actually about 30 years ago now. So. The best learning I took is that at the end of the day, people are people. When I fast forwarded to become a mediator, I went back and got a master's degree and became a corporate mediator, opened my business. And I remember thinking to myself in one of the mediations that, wow, I feel like I'm back in the jail system. The only difference is that we're in a boardroom and everyone's dressed really professionally. And I thought, this is really incredible. At the end of the day, people are people. The environment might be different.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and relationships are relationships, right?
Exactly.
And that's. I mean, in looking and studying your business a little bit, it seems like that's kind of what you thrive on is helping relationships flourish at different levels in government and in business.
You bet. There's nothing more rewarding than being able to watch people who are so in conflict, and you can see how difficult the situation has been for them. And then just with a process or with some additional skills, they can look at each other differently, they can understand the conflict differently, and come to a resolution that everyone can live with. And you see the relief drain from people. And it's very empowering for the people in that process to learn that they got through this and that probably other challenges will be easier for them to work through. So it's a great, when people learn how to resolve conflict effectively, it helps them in every area of their life, because we don't just have conflict at work and in business, we have conflict at home as well and in our communities.
Well said. It's fascinating because to me, some of the people that I interview are interested in relationships like a lot of us are interested in team building like a lot of us are. I have never heard anybody phrase it the way you do, and I really like this a lot. Workplace conflict and difficult conversations. That's an eye-opener for me. I assume that people look at those, work on those, whatever, but this seems like, all right, we're going to shoot this right in the bullseye. This is where we're going to go. This is what we're going to take care of.
Yeah, about the research is telling us right now about 30% of the stress that happens for people in a workplace is actually rooted in conflict and relationship difficulties. Yeah. And so the good news is, though, is that we can work on that. We can implement policies and processes and training to help people to be able to help build healthy relationships, resolve those tough conflicts or communication that goes sideways, and then their stress level goes down. So there's such a huge advantage for companies. Interestingly enough, at a number of the conferences I present at, for leaders, I will ask the audience, how many of you have been trained in conflict resolution? How many of you have skills to facilitate people through these discussions, these courageous dialogues? And generally about 20% of the room puts up their hand, yet they are spending 50+% of their time doing this, actually helping people through conflict. So it's such an important skill for leaders to be able to be successful as well and make their job easier.
Absolutely, because if the leaders get it, then the employees, the teams, anybody else in the company realizes that they get it, and that gives them the credibility for those people to actually listen to them and respect what they're about to bring to the table instead of looking at them and go, oh, he's kind of guessing where I'm at. It's not going anywhere.
Oh, absolutely. You are so accurate on that. And, I think about a team that I worked with many years ago. They were in municipal government and just a great group of people, really wanted their team to function well. But they had a leader who was very, very conflict avoidance style. Mm-hmm. So anything that felt like disagreement, she would avoid it, detract the conversation, move the conversation somewhere else. And so what ended up happening when I went in, the team had a lot of communication breakdowns, but there was also breakdowns in trust. And when I talked to people individually and setting up the training, everybody said, we're not allowed to have conflict here. So it just goes under the carpet. And the leader had no idea that her discomfort with these awkward conversations actually created a culture where people felt they weren't welcome to have disagreements, and that perfection was a requirement. She had no idea. You can imagine sort of her eyeballs bugging, and how quickly she wanted to change that.
And I can only imagine the turnover that she had, and she didn't realize why.
She had no idea why. You're absolutely right, because on the surface, it's like what one of my favorite authors, Patrick Lencioni, and in his book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, he talks about what he calls superficial harmony. And when I read that term in his book and then I walked into this team, I thought, this is what superficial harmony looks and feels like. On the surface, everything looks fine. And on the inside, there's lack of trust, lack of holding accountability, lack of ability to disagree, relationship breaks down, and an expectation on perfection. So I thought, this is what superficial harmony looked like. It was fantastic to read it and then see it immediately. That's that learning.
Absolutely. And the other thing that fascinates me about what you do, and employee and team resilience, and it seems to me this team, at least, who was in place when you got there, had some team resilience, but for all the wrong reasons.
Yes. Yeah, and I think it was interesting. I wondered about that myself, too. What, for the people that stayed, what kept them there? Yeah. And they liked their leader. Despite the fact they didn't like that conflict was not being dealt with, they actually really liked their leader, and they were invested in her and saw the good in her. And that got me thinking that, how you show up as a leader, how we show up as employees in our place of work is so important. And because these folks that stuck around were invested in her, they were willing to go through some of the tough conversations that needed to happen to get the team back on track.
I mean, that's a gift. That doesn't happen every day in your business, I would assume, to have a team and a leader be so caring about each other, but yet so far apart and able to bring them together. I mean, that's Goosebump City there. That had to be a treat.
Well, it got me thinking about how important empathy is. And, it's a word we don't talk about a lot in the workplace. And I just read a report on LinkedIn yesterday that one of the big companies had made an announcement that they are now claiming that empathy is not a soft skill, it's an essential skill for all their new hires. And I thought, this is a great change of reference, because we often call skills like empathy, communication, conflict resolution, resilience, collaboration. We refer to them as soft skills, which actually really minimizes how important they are.
Yeah.
They are essential skills.
Yeah, absolutely essential skills. And I'm glad to see empathy added to the list, because that's a fairly recent perception, isn't it?
I think so, and for those folks that follow the work of Brené Brown, I mean, she talks so much about vulnerability in relationships, and I think at the end of the day, when we're dealing with these, what I call courageous dialogues, which are those conversations that matter most and are mostly avoided, it requires us to be vulnerable. I mean, there's really no way to resolve conflict and not enter into some state of vulnerability and discomfort. And so the more we can practice getting good at that, the better we can excel in our communication and relationships.
No question. And that brings me to authenticity and integrity, which is a huge piece of a lot of people's life, personally and business. And you can't, I don't think that you can excel in either one, let alone both of those, unless you figure out a way to be genuinely vulnerable.
Yeah, and I love that you've raised integrity, because that is a value that is so strong in teams and workplaces and in our families. And one of the best ways for teams to learn about integrity is to see it in action. You know, and when we can hold each other accountable, teams that work really well together are able to get through these messy, bumpy spots and hold each other accountable, hold themselves accountable, and really play in the space of, acting out what integrity looks like.
So when you put on seminars and training and these customized training deals for companies, so how does that work? Do you go in and meet with them individually, with teams, with leadership, and then kind of construct a pathway to get them going?
Yeah, I customize all the programs I do, because every team has different challenges, and a canned sort of, same approach for all just doesn't work. So I'll often meet with the leadership team. Sometimes I'll do a pre-training survey to get a handle on where people are at, what some of the needs or issues are. Sometimes I'll do interviews. So each contract will look a little bit differently, but the value of having those pre-conversations really allows the content to be honed in and totally specific to the group. And one of the things that I get a lot, whether I'm doing the surveys or meeting with people individually or by phone, is people really want a script. One of the toughest things for people is that first 90 seconds in the conversation where they're, you know what it's like, your mind goes blank, you're nervous, you're managing all kinds of stuff, and you've got to get the conversation going, and people are really in a state of discomfort. So I get a lot of feedback from people that they just want to know some things. What are some questions they can memorize, or some statements that they can memorize? Because it's the language sometimes that catches people up, and then they have to go back and correct things in the moment.
In my business, and I'm sure a lot of businesses, I'm a voice actor by trade, and so developing what we call an elevator pitch is invaluable, and that sounds very similar to what they're asking you for.
Yeah, and people even want to know, how do I get the conversation started after saying, thanks for coming in today. And so I've got a 5-step model that I actually walk people through. It's sort of like a roadmap, really, to provide people with a feeling of comfort and confidence that when they go into these conversations, even though they sometimes go all over the place, they're never linear, at least the roadmap can help people get refocused if they go sideways.
Well, comfort and confidence to kick off any kind of a meeting is huge. So that's a wonderful gift, skill set that you bring to the table. With these businesses, oftentimes I would think, I don't know this for sure, but it seems like more and more businesses are outsourcing or letting employees work from home, or they're traveling around. Do you bring in those people from the outside, for lack of a better term, into these meetings?
You bet, as much as we can. And I so am grateful that you raised this concept of remote teams and folks who work from home, because one of the things that I hear all the time is that they get missed out. So there'll be a team meeting, and because that person is working from home that day, nobody has made the effort to patch them in by phone, or they've actually forgotten that the person is even on the team. Right. It's just tragic. and you can imagine how communication breaks down, and there's so much value to being able to Zoom in or Skype in, video conference in people that are away. And one of my clients that I've worked with, they do a morning safety talk and a huddle every morning. Oh, nice. And it's just a short meeting. Yeah, it's about, I think they said it's a 12-minute meeting is what they typically do. They stand up for the meeting, and if anyone who is away from the workplace that day still calls in. So as much as possible, the team is there, even if they're, as long as they're not driving. They have a
exactly.
vehicle, which is good.
Absolutely right. One of your latest books, bestseller, GPS, Your Best Life, Charting Your Destination and Getting There in Style. And that's been out for a while, and I'm assuming that it's written by you and Deborah Kozowski. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And I'm assuming that works beautifully in personal as well as professional life, right?
It really, really does. Yes, the book takes you through a number of steps to be able to get a hold of your mindset, to be able to set yourself up for success, how to get rid of some of the junk in the trunk that we call it,
right,
which is the attitudes, the beliefs, the baggage that we bring with us into relationships and that really get in the way of our success and being able to thrive. And then there's a number of steps in the book that talk about dealing with tough situations, setting boundaries, which are really important for us in the workplace as well as the family, being able to set those boundaries.
And you've got a couple of great referrals, if you will, testimonials, an exciting journey of discovery that has you expertly navigate hidden fears and procrastination to embrace passion and adventure. 6-time Emmy Award winner Sean Duprat. I mean, hidden fears and procrastination. Oh my gosh. Let's write a book about that.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And, for anyone, Dr. Sean Duprat is an incredible expert on the power of forgiveness and the power of apology. And, which is so important for us in the workplace as well, as being able to let go of some of the things that we're carrying forward that are getting in the way of us, being purposeful and passionate about our work and the tasks that are in front of us.
And forgiveness, I would think, it's important to all of us at different levels and for different reasons. But I would think when you get into conflict resolution, forgiveness has to be in there somewhere, right?
Yes, and sometimes the forgiveness is actually about forgiving ourselves,
Exactly.
forgiving ourselves for how we showed up, or we said something that, didn't serve the conversation well, or maybe we said something that hurt somebody and we need to take ownership over that. So forgiveness is not just a gift that you're giving to others. It's also one that you give yourself so that you can move forward. And it doesn't mean that you agree with someone's actions or that you condone them. It's a process of being able to move forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We've only got a couple of minutes left, and I'm really curious about your Toby books.
Toby the dog.
Yeah. So Toby and his hospital friends, Toby's terms. Toby says, "Be a buddy, not a bully." Both in English and Spanish. Give me a brief rundown on Toby. It looks so fascinating to me.
Well, he was our adopted dog who came to us with a handful of challenges. He was sort of like that employee that you hire that passes probation and turns into somebody else. That's what happened with Toby. And the only way to get this dog's behavior under control and save us thousands of dollars on all the damage that he was, property damage he was doing, was to get him a job. And he became a therapy dog. And he and I volunteered in a mental health institution for 4 years. And that is power, purpose, and passion on 4 legs, really. This dog found his purpose, which was helping others and just showing up in their life. And the book is really about how he became my best teacher.
Wow. All those books are available on Amazon, folks, so be sure to check them out. Her website is Charmaine Hammond, that's CHARMAINE, Charmaine Hammond, HAMMOND.com. And seminars, training, consulting. She's a speaker. She's a trainer. And also your partners on Raise a Dream, right? Give us just a brief rundown of that. That sounds incredible.
Oh, it's a wonderful business. Rebecca Kirsty and I work with entrepreneurs, business owners to help them build powerful collaborations and partnerships to be able to advance their business. And we also do some teaching around the process of securing corporate partnership and sponsorship to be able to fund your dreams and projects that you're working on.
Fascinating. Growing 1 million businesses through sponsorship and how you can work with them, Charmaine and Rebecca. Check that out as well, raiseadream.com. Charmaine, it's been great talking with you today. Thank you for what you do and for what you bring to the table, and obviously for all the joy that you find in doing this. Terrific stuff.
Oh, thank you so much. It was just great to be with you today.
Listen to your 20-minute podcast with David Brower on the go. Downloads are available on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, any podcast app, and on our website at davidbrowervo.com/your20-minute podcast. Until next time, thank you for listening.